Hello, and welcome to CDO Magazine interview series. I'm John Hirschberger with Wavical Data Solutions. We're partnering with CDO Magazine, MIT, CDOIQ, and the International Society of Chief Data Officers in a series of interviews. Today, I have the pleasure of speaking with Farouk Fertichi, former CDO of Toyota and USAA. You've had a long career in the data and analytics world and in CDO roles specifically. Can you tell us about your career in this area and the roles that you've had that best prepared you to be a CDO?
Yes, first of all, John, really appreciate you and the opportunity to share some thoughts here today about data analytics overall and the CDO role. And really with everyone part of this CDO magazine community, and I hope everyone is doing well and safe during these times, difficult times. Yes, I did do, I don't want to age myself, but I did do quite few roles in the data analytics space that led me to becoming a CDO about a little over a decade ago. I did roles like I started my career as an economist or a junior economist, and I did pricing analysis. I did process and automation engineering, credit risk analytics, and of course, consulting. But John, the two roles that, looking back, I feel prepared me the most for the CDO role were my process and automation engineering and credit risk analytics roles, because both gave me the opportunity to experience kind of the data analytics world from the two lenses, the technology and data management side of things, and the data mining and the reporting and the modeling and the business use of the insights on the other side. In other words, what I mean by that is understanding the importance of the data acquisition, management, consumption, supported by an underlying architecture, governance, pipelining, infrastructure from a tech and data management perspective. And then from the business side, the importance of standardizing reporting to run the company in a select standard set of KPIs and KRIs on a daily, monthly, or quarterly basis, enabling that self-service ability and the development of the forecast and the prediction models that drives the business and the ad hoc business decisions.
There's a number of people who will be watching this recording. And they'll be in organizations that are considering establishing a CDO role. From your experience, what are some of the key considerations that you would advise people to consider while moving in that direction?
Yeah, John, I get that a lot. I think big picture, while companies' adoption of the role of the CDAOs and the CDAOs or the CDOs roles has increased from the low teens and probably the 2010, 11, 12 to now 50+% of companies have the role of or a version of the CDO role. I feel like while we're making advancements on that front, the struggle of defining and sustaining the role continues to be a challenge. And I believe, based on my experience, a key reason for this challenge is the world of data and analytics is so diverse. It's broad and deep at the same time. And so there are plenty of opportunity that comes from it. Some companies are looking to take an offensive role to data analytics, others a more defensive role to data analytics. And there is, of course, many shades in between that offense and defense approach to taking on a CDO function. As such, to your point about the consideration that I strongly suggest is establishing a CDAO function to define the specific purpose of the function, which in return, I think, whether it's offense, defense, or something in between, in return will enable the organization to bring the relevant leadership for that particular role they want, the talent to support them, or the org model internally that will make them successful. It'll be easier to define the scope of influence and objectives for the group, and ultimately setting everyone involved, the company, the CDO and the team and everyone that the CDO serves and partner with for success.
We've seen a lot of organizational structures that CDOs are a part of. IT, marketing, operations, and finance, just to name a few. From your experience, are there some key considerations for determining where a CDO should report?
Yeah, very difficult question. It's really building upon your prior question, John. As I mentioned before, it really comes down to what is the purpose and objective of the data analytics organization or the CDO function. So to peel the onion a little bit on that is, so if it is about a defensive role focusing on responding to regulatory and compliance requirements and issues, then I strongly suggest the CDO role to report to the CRO organization or the risk and compliance management organization. If, on the other hand, the play around the CDO is to build a data analytics technology platform or an environment that enables other groups across the organization to leverage and respond to the various business needs, and they can range, as you can tell, from front, as you know best, John, from the front, the middle, to back office, and the different products within that life cycle of managing the business or the consumer experience. Then in that case, I suggest to be part of the CTO or the CIO organization, depending how those roles in particular companies are defined. Mm-hmm. Now, if the function is designed to drive growth through the leverage of analytics, then I suggest it to be with marketing. Otherwise, if the function or role is expected to improve customer experience, reduce operating expense, then in that case, I suggest it to be part of operations. Now, there is an emerging but ill-defined expectation that the role of the CDO or the CDAO can own all the pieces I just talked about. And in that case, I strongly suggest that the organization consider the CDAO reporting directly to the CEO. Because in that case, you're kind of, if we use loosely the terminology of balance sheet management of the data, then the CDAO in that case owns the liability side or the risk management side of managing the data, but also the asset management side or the value generating side of the balance sheet of data. And in that case, closer to the CEO, reporting to the CEO, peer to all the different leaders of the functions we just talked about would be appropriate, I think. And my prediction, and I'm not a great prediction man, but I strongly believe in the next 5 to 10 years, there'll be a bigger appetite by CEOs to consider that strongly.
So, in describing, the multiple opportunities to participate in this role in different parts of the organization, there's obviously lots of key business organizations that you have to partner effectively with. Who do you think are the most important roles that you have to establish those partnerships to maximize your opportunity for success?
Yeah, thanks, John, for that question. I mean, over the years, as I tripped, learned, and succeeded in the CDO roles, I like to answer that question, who I wouldn't partner with, John. But really, to make it concrete for the audience, is really, I would say in no particular order, obviously, they're all equally important. And depending on the month and the day and the quarter of focus, but they're equally important over a period of time to make CDO successful. CTO and CIO, like I mentioned, to build the necessary data infrastructure, particularly in these days as companies are either in the cloud and they want to maximize the use of the cloud by leveraging all what the cloud offer, or in their way to get to the cloud or thinking about it. So that tight relationship and partnership with the CTO and CIO to position the data analytics portfolio to go to the cloud in the safest, fastest way and leverage all of its value, it's really important. The other part important with the CTOs and CIOs, it's really data engineering has evolved over time from the basic ETLing, batch processing to more real time and near real time to now with Kafka and Talon, and there are a lot of techniques around how to build the best, more clear and near real time data piping that needs to be part of a larger API strategy, in my opinion, and a larger technology strategy that the CDO needs to work with the CTO and CIO on. The second role, I would say, CRO. You know, it is really important to partner with the CIO, the Chief Risk Officer organization, to take this risk-based approach to data governance. In some ways, elevating the risk of the data within the enterprise risk taxonomy. If you are in the financial services industry, you can relate to this. And develop the appropriate policy, procedures, controls, and KRIs, or key risk indicator, to measure and report accordingly the levels of risk that the company is dealing with, whether it's around security, whether it's around sharing, retention, quality, metadata, you name it. The other role I would say, and most different companies have different titles for this, I would say a combination of the chief digital officer, the omni-channel general managers, the distribution leaders of the company, right? And that ranges from web, mobile, contact center, of course, all the channels that the organization, now with COVID, the priorities that businesses are putting in those channels is unprecedented. So it's really important for the CDO to partner with those organizations to drive, in my opinion, ultimately a better customer experience through acquisition, servicing, or retention, through at least two ways. One, optimization of the operation already in place, better measurement of how effectively and efficiently it's done, as well as powering that experience with new models, new intelligence that is embedded near real time and real time in that experience. Another one is the CFO. And I think fundamentally this is, in a long term, this is foundational partnership that needs to start from the beginning, because the CFO can help the CDO articulate and bring the discipline on how to measure the value and the return of that data analytics investments over time. And finally, HR, it goes without saying. It is really important that the CDO partner closely with HR. As you know, John, it's a pretty interesting times to not only attract, but also retain the talent. So we're really working closely with HR to standardize and govern the data analytics roles, as well as creating a career path for those who are particularly not interested in management, but they're wonderful professionals in the data analytics space, and you want to keep them and you want to grow them. That's all I can think about from a partnership point of view.
But I completely agree with you. Developing the appropriate strategies for people to grow and develop and develop that technical expertise is so incredibly important. As you think about developing and deploying new technology solutions, many folks are focused on that, whether they're customer facing, back office automation, efficiency improvement. But there's a lot of data analytics solutions out there that folks are focused on developing. Could you describe some of your experiences around or those components that helped you be most successful in deploying those new solutions?
Yeah, I'll break that into two parts. I think, John, one is really tearing down the silos of what I consider the parts of making a data analytics solution, and I refer to as a data analytics supply chain. And so when you look at the data analytics supply chain, and we talked about a little bit earlier, it's getting broad and deep at the same time. And so it requires quite a diverse set of skill sets to contribute to that. And some of those skill sets are more IT driven, like grown out of IT kind of skill sets, like the data engineers. And others are growing in the business side, like the business decision support analyst, the business analyst, operation analyst, et cetera. And there is this new emerging data scientist role that either comes from the computer science side and bridges over to the business, or coming from the business and leveraging the power of computer science to power the math and statistics. And so in my mind, to bridge that gap, and my experience in particular, I brought to the table, I suggest strongly, and I brought to the table and worked for me, the product management approach to developing data analytics solutions. Mm-hmm. Now, underneath that, that will tear down the silos between the IT and the business in developing these solutions, because in one given team now, you have a product manager, you have a data engineer, a data scientist, a designer, a business support, and decision support analyst working together to create that one feature or one story or multiple, epics or what have you, right? And then so product management coupled with an agile approach methodology to delivering things, as well as maintaining the required controls that come historically with the IT development lifecycle, or the SDLC, or the solution or software lifecycle development cycle, because it really brings that discipline of having the appropriate controls in place. Like, for example, making sure that when you source the data, you have the appropriate data quality controls right up front. That needs to be coupled with a strong partnership and collaboration with the IT department, because they own the production environment. And I think big picture, the partnership and the collaboration with IT, I group it into three parts. One, you got to stay tight again with the CTO and CIO and influence and hopefully ideally sign off on the tech strategy. Two, I would say actively lead the business governance of how that tech is performing day in and day out, and establish in partnership with the CIO and CTO the type of KPIs and KRIs that the tech infrastructure is enabling the data analytics work to be done on time, pre and post production, or post implementation and production. And be part of, if not sharing, but drive the governance around it, the routines of reviewing those availability, capacity, security around the platform. And then finally, I would say integrated data and analytics development standard, like I mentioned with the SDLC. It really helps tear down the silos between this IT and business, because data analytics solution development requires heavily both sides of the equation.
Well, kind of following up on that theme, and I've had a lot of experiences in this space as well, not all good, but as you deploy new technology solutions, one of the challenges you often experience is what I traditionally refer to as the adoption and migration challenge. So, getting people to use the new thing But more importantly, I guess, but certainly just as important, getting them to stop using the old thing or migrate from the old application. So do you have some ideas about some ways to help people improve their success in getting off the old and getting onto the new?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this problem is not going to go away, and it's only going to get worse, I think. Let me talk about it, John, from two parts. One, kind of what are the techniques I found to be useful? And you can deploy most of them over time, all of them over time, or you can deploy some of them depending on the context of the company and the readiness. But I'll say build self-service right up front by design. The ease of use and the enablement is so important when introducing new technologies or new solutions or what have you. The second one is investing in the training of existing talent. You can't expect folks to buy into this new analytics workbench if they use SaaS for most of their life overnight. You can't expect them to use Python or R overnight. So you really need to invest in training with existing talent. At the same time, I think given the high demand around work around data analytics and the short supply, whether that's your case or not, I think carefully study the mix of your organization talent and actively go find new talent that brings new skills and new abilities of using the new technology and mix them and partner them with existing talent. Another way is when you're thinking about the solution, the solution needs to be integratable. They can't be a full replacement of the old, but there is maybe a step, and I'll talk a little bit in a second about an example that I went through with the SaaS migration. You have to think about a staged approach to migration if there is resistance. And then the last part I will say is, in addition to self-service and ease of integration, I'll say ease of productionization. One of the reasons, and you and I know, John, have been in this business for a long time, when the users, analytical folks love to use SaaS and Tableau and things like that because they own when things can change and how it's changed, and the business has that power, or the users, for lack of a better word. What is that going to look like? It's really important by design to build it into the deployment process of new solutions or technologies. Let me go back into the SaaS example. So, and this has been going on everywhere I went. Really, there is such a huge legacy of SaaS environment that was built to stage the data, build a lot of ETLs, and then perform the modeling aspects of the SaaS part. Well, all of that is part of SaaS environment. So when you introduce a new technology and there is resistance in the system, what worked best for me when I introduced Netezza, and I built a lot of functions in the host of Netezza to replace some of the SaaS function if possible. What I came to, after listening to the voice of the customer and the users, I quickly found that it's best to build a hybrid transition adoption strategy where we bought a connector between the SaaS environment and the Netezza environment at the time to be able to read and write the SaaS input and output into Netezza. And that created a huge lift and adoption to people even to start using the Netezza environment. And they can pick and choose over time what functions and what use of SaaS versus the inherent host functions that we built natively in the custom built in the Netezza environment. So that's just some of the examples, John, that I can think of at this point.
So what you're describing, it's obvious if you're making real progress in the data and analytics space, you're introducing a lot of change into organizations. Can you speak to the best practices in change management that you've experienced that help you improve your probability of success?
Yeah, this is a tough one, John. Regardless of, I believe, regardless of who the CDO reports to, like we discussed earlier, it is really important to make sure they are engaged in all aspects of running the data analytics supply chain. So if you're in risk management, be part of the data analytics supply chain. Don't create a silo for yourself, because it may work in a short term, but in a long run, you'll miss out on the scale and the leverage that you have with being part of the community and the supply chain of data analytics for a larger company. That includes at minimum the ability to partner on the technology foundation and be a driver for change in technology and adopting new technology, rather than being a customer of the technology push of new tools. The governance deployment. Yes, if you are in marketing and you're focused on the growth and the leverage of data analytics, put governance in the forefront of your top of mind and work that change management from that angle. And of course, the HR involvement strategically and systematically in the acquisition and retention of talent and influencing that strategy is so critical. And if I may add one last thought on that, that really I went, on this one, I went from 0 to 180 overnight on. As you know, John, I worked at Gartner, and during that time is when the emergence of the data literacy thinking and programs came about. And I honestly was not a big fan up front, because I'm a big believer in open economy, organic development. If you create value, ultimately people will buy it. There is not necessarily need to invest. But fast forward years later, experiencing a lot of resistance in the system of change management, I do believe strongly that for CDOs to be successful in any organization, they need to figure out how to introduce a data literacy program into their organization. Because while you need to continue to drive the value and the organic development of value, that goes without saying, assuming that people see it and value it, it's very hard. And you can't wait for that organic recognition. You want to accelerate it. And if you want to accelerate it, you want to have an accelerator for it, like the data literacy program that will educate people at the board, presidents, GMs, product owners, people who don't think data is really part of running the business daily.
So you've spoke about bringing in new skills sometimes to help to even out the skill sets across your organization, to bring in new capabilities that didn't exist before. But in the last couple of years, it's been extraordinarily difficult to find and highly qualified folks to staff into DNA roles. Can you describe some of your experiences in that space and some of the strategies that were most effective in helping you to gather and integrate the number of folks you needed to be successful? Yeah,
absolutely, John. Yeah, I can't understate this, John, as you put it very well. This is a very, very challenging, of all the challenges, acquiring and retaining the talent to operate a modern and create value data analytics function is very difficult. And there is a slightly, quote unquote, a war happening in the market of talent. And I believe the reason is this. If you look at the type of skill sets are evolving as we speak, right? Like, think about it, we talked about data engineering, right? Data engineering has changed. It used to be you attract ETL talent. Now you're attracting software development and more service-oriented development and more API development, more Kafka, leveraging Kafka and talent type of infrastructure to stream real time the data, regardless of its consumption pattern. Data scientists need has evolved just from knowing the computer science and the math and the statistics and the NLP into the context by which they serve those models, right? They need to be storytellers. It's beyond knowing the math and the statistics and the computer science. If you look at the business decision support analyst, it used to be, embedded in the finance and marketing, etc. Well, now, and they do forecasting or predictions or reporting. Well, now the expectation is they need to learn the new techniques to build more sophisticated machine learning driven classification, scoring, what have you. So when you think about it, and then on the data governance side of things, analysts, it's no longer just by understanding the best data management practices around data quality management or metadata management or master data management. You really need to bring to the table a thorough understanding of risk management and couple that with a deep knowledge around data so you can present it in a specific way. That is the war that we're dealing with right now. Some of the strategies, and you don't find, the description I just shared with you, John, and the skill sets we're looking for, you don't find them laying around. And when they are available, they are picked up pretty quickly. I mean, everyone is actively near real time posting in LinkedIn. I haven't seen as much senior leaders posting their jobs outside of HR and LinkedIn, soliciting people to apply. That aside, I would say two strategies that worked for me, and I suggest to others. I believe as a CDO, you need to recognize the challenge. You need to go and compete with everyone out there, but that cannot be the only tool that you hedge with in this war. I would like to add like a deliberate strategy that enable organic development and emergence of talent from within. So all these data scientists, going back to the discussion around product development and tearing down the silos and create an integrated agile teams between data engineers, data scientists, decision support analysts, etc. That camaraderie and co-development of feature development will ultimately, the data engineer will start learning what the data science does and vice versa, and start developing an organic pipeline of people that emerge to want to move from one place to another and learning new skills and new talent. The second strategy is, in my opinion, it's a little bit more short, mid and long term. The three-tier structure of workforce, in my mind, is invest in partnership and hiring young talent for the first 1 to 3 years. And you have to have them hired as employee of the company. The mid-career type, hedge them, go partner with third parties, offshore, nearshore, onshore, what have you. And then focus on the latter part, the senior more people, 10 plus 15 years, invest on those to become employees. And so that's how you hedge the balance sheet. One of the things to attract the new early talent, I would say, obviously strong relationship with the universities, but not be only focused on university talent or pipelining. Look at other data analytics training certifications that are offered by non-universities and go build that partnership as well.
I couldn't agree more. So one area that, and I'd say the final question for you this afternoon, but one area that I think creates a lot of challenge for a lot of leaders in the CDO space is obtaining sufficient funding to drive new projects. And I regularly see research that demonstrates that is one of the largest challenges that CDOs are finding day to day. So do you have some advice for CDOs that are seeking funding? Some of the strategies that have been effective for you to gather that level of support and financial support in order to move these programs forward?
Yeah, John. The reality is, in my experience, the lack of funding in data analytics problem has changed. I haven't faced a data analytics personally lack of funding since the crash of the economy, right off the back of the crash of the economy. Every company I've been part of, either internally or as a consultant, really prioritized data analytics and they fund it. The question became really, a lot of questions start rising about what are we getting for that funding, which really could, not all the time, could create a slowdown in funding and or a hesitation to fund overall, like period, stop funding and recalibrate, which loses the momentum, right? I've seen that. But generally, the starting point of a lot of companies, they recognize data analytics and their funding. Now, the distribution of funding may not be equitable between the business and the technology. It's very all over the place. How much exactly companies are spending on data analytics is not clear because there is no portfolio. Hence, kind of the way I would respond to that question as a suggestion to peer CDOs out there is, start by moving the world of analytics and data work from an activity base to a value base, and find the vehicle to get you there. For me, it's about product development. It's turning the discussion away from projects and IT does this for me and business does this. What is the solution, data analytics solution, and how all the people that work on it are working together. But before, that's a method, but really the first thing is really either if you have an outstanding set of backlog activities or you're seeking to add new activities and convert them to value, you need to study the company's strategy. And a lot of people get overwhelmed and they skip over this thing. You have to read the business strategies. And if there is multiple strategies for multiple companies within the same corporations, go after it. And then double click and go to the operating plans, as you know best, John. Understand exactly where in the operating plans, whether it's the product plans, the customer experience plans, the distribution channel plans, etc., where in the operating plan of a given business unit the data analytics is required. I'll give you an example. If you are replatforming driven by COVID and many other things, if you're replatforming the mobile platform to improve the experience of the customer, it's a great place to be connected to that strategy and start piping and planning for what all the models that may be sitting somewhere or unfunded or ideas that can be brought to the table when you're thinking about a mobile replatforming, for example, whether it's conversational AI, as you know, or better personalization, near-time personalization. The other thing is, I recommend strongly that CDOs own the problem rather than be a customer of the problem. And what I mean by that is, when it comes to funding is a very sensitive topic, expenses is a sensitive topic. Create a portfolio governance of all the initiative and spending around the organization for data analytics. Drive the engagement. Have people across a line of businesses, across the different key functions, be part of that portfolio. If nothing else, be engaged, prioritize the portfolio, and create transparency of what value these activities are yielding for the function or the organization overall.
Thank you very much. Your experiences have been very useful to this discussion, and appreciate your candor and your willingness to share with the audience today. So thanks again.
Thank you, John. I appreciate you. Glad to be part of this team. Thanks.
Thank you, Farouk, for joining me today. Please visit cdomagazine.tech for additional interviews.